Holy downloads, Batman. I just got back from the center. Wow, what a journey. I am returning from the center of the earth. Center of the earth. That's the music they play when you're taking the elevator down to the center of the earth. You can record it and play it back for yourself if you'd like, but I've heard enough of it! It takes 16 days to get to the center of the earth. So it's a long journey. I'm tired of hearing that song for 16 days. Coming back is a bit more babooling. Happens very quickly. I'd like to share what I experienced in the center of the earth. I don't know if I'll be able to articulate it, so I'm just going to try to do my best to think of how it could be. Okay, imagine the earth's like an avocado. A yummy, ripe, perfect avocado. And you've split it and sliced it, and you take out the pit. The pit, which is what? The seed of fertility, the beginning, the potentiality for life itself. There is no thing that didn't start from a seed of one kind or another. And that seed lays ready at the center of everything. Every being thing and every thought being thing. Every potentiality has a seed at the center. That's one way to look at it. So the center of the earth is the seed from which all life sprouts. So you've split this avocado in two, and imagine you are now the center of the earth. You're looking at two halves of the avocado, right? The only way to get to the center is to split the thing to see the center. So once you're at the center, all you'll ever see is the split. You cannot enter the center without splitting the thing. That's the nature of entering. When we're talking about particles responding to the intentionality of the observer, that's what we're talking about. To know the inside of a thing recreates the thing. But if you slice it thin enough, the recreation of the thing is the two halves of the thing. So you can look at it on the inside. You can see the whole inside of it because it's been perfectly sliced. But that is not the thing itself. That's the illusion that we fall for when we think we know what the fuck is going on. None of us know what the fuck is going on. It doesn't matter if you're looking at the rational side of things, the cause-effect side of all things, and understanding that in minute perfectness, or if you're looking at the mystical faith side of things and seeing that in its omniscient perfectness. Those things together create all life. You can be a believer in this side or believer in that side, and you are not seeing the whole thing. The paradigm balance of life, for lack of any fucking terms that I know about, please hit me up if you know better ones, and I would guess that almost anything would be better than paradigmic balance. But there you have it. Paradigmic balance between thought process and letting go of thought process, working together in harmony is what life is. And yet, most all of us tend toward needle swinging from one to the other in life, thinking we've got it figured out in one way or another. I know what to do, or I know what attitude to have, or I know how to let go of knowing what to do, and I let go of knowing what to do. I'm in the flow of it, in the zone, the feeling, the chi of it all, the love of it all, the passion of it all, the momentum of it all, the belief of it all. Or I am in the practice of it all, the discipline of it all, the putting together of it all. Anyway, we got all that shit going on. And if you're anything like me, you tend to be, I'm over here today, I'm a little over here today. I think I'm doing it both, but thinking I'm doing it both is its own version of one of these things. It's a real difficult dance to keep right there. Whoo! In the center at all the time. Oh, there it is, center. That's what's going on in the center. The center is the place which sees all sides equally. Let me repeat that, super important. The center is the place that sees all sides and all potentialities equally. Only when you slice a thing, only when you pretend you can know a thing, do you fall for the illusion of placement that you could have a correct perspective on things. What the center knows, because everything's spinning around the center, is there is no correct perspective. There is no fixed perspective, so there can be no correct perspective. The only true perspective is the perspective of everything. As one thing. As a thing of equal value to all other things, because it's part of the one thing. Perspective from the center means seeing it all. Perspective from any other place means only seeing part of it and imagining you're the fixed point of view. It's a fallacy. It's an illusion. So you're going to feel dissonant, fucked up. You're going to feel angry. You're going to feel judgmental. You're going to feel like the world's on the wrong track. You're going to feel like the people around you don't know what they're doing. You're going to feel like you need to get people organized and together and fighting for the same thing so that you can all be doing this together. Whether you're here or over here, it doesn't matter. You're feeling that because you're in a fixed point of view, and that's your problem. That's your problem. You got a problem? That's it. If any part of you feels like you've got a problem, I just told you what it is. You can stop looking for your problem. That's what it is. You think you have a fixed point of view. That's it. Not a big deal, not your fault, but that is your problem. Every other problem you imagine having in life, be it a personal problem, a social problem, a work problem, a problem with the world, a political problem, etc., 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 business problem, etc., 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 sexual problem, etc., etc., etc. All the problems you could ever have are all sprouts, offshoots from that one seed center. You think you're a fixed point of view, and you ain't. Tough, though. Tough to figure out how to not have a fixed point of view when you're here all the time. Can't not be here, so it feels fixed at some level. So the journey to the center of the earth is the acknowledgement that two halves are split, therefore you cannot have a true perspective that's a fixed perspective. You can only have a perspective of everything. And when I was down there, what blew my shicky-shockies was that the sides, the two sides of the avocado, if you will, and I will, especially with mozzarella and tomato, are spinning. Okay. Spinning in opposite directions. Time out. What? Yeah, it's like it's screwed together. Right? Because to be in the center, I've had to split it. So I'm noticing that it's being put back together. But if I'm noticing it's being put back together, it means it has the capacity to be put back together, which means it has the capacity to be split, which means it is designed. However you want to conceive of whatever that might be. It is designed to be witnessed through splitting. And we know this because it is designed to be put back together. The whole of a thing, the nature of a thing, the whole of Earth is designed to go together, like two pieces, top and a bottom, left and a right. It's designed for the splitting. The nature of consciousness is dichotomous, by design. It's not a flaw that we're always putting things in two camps. The sewing, the stitching is you. The sewing, the stitching is consciousness. The choice of a life well lived, freely lived, uniquely lived, fully present, enlightened, whatever you want to call it, is the life that is not a fixed point of view, but is a constant threading of any two halves of anything. So anyway, I'm down there in the center of the earth looking at the two halves spinning in opposite directions. And it occurred to me that I have two halves. Split a left, a right brain, blah, 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 blah. Past and the future. I have two halves, a heart and a mind. A gut and a heart, a gut and a mind. I have three halves. I have two halves. I am split into things. And those things are themselves rotating in opposite directions, which when combined, create a vibration that holds them together. It's a good thing that they're opposites. It's a good thing that left and right are spinning in opposite directions. It's a correct thing. It is a design thing that up and down exist together, spinning in opposite directions. It is in their spinning that, like threads on something on the jar top, like those kind of threads in a screw, it's that opposite spinning that allows it to maintain itself as a whole. My wholeness is reliant upon my leftness and my rightness. The moment I try to be one or the other, I fall out of balance. And out of balance, I will grab hold of a fixed position and fall for that illusion and create further dissonance and, wait for it, anxiety in my life. You want to get rid of anxiety in your life? You want to address your problem? Drop the illusion of a fixed point of view by allowing yourself to always be left and right, up and down, black and white, yes and no. You're just the stitching that holds it together. You're the threads. You're the witness to two opposites spinning. Your job is not to pick which one is better for you, better for the world, the one you really are, the one that people ought to be. If you're falling for that illusion in any capacity, as a religion, as an ideology, you are so fucked up. And I don't mean that personally. I mean like you're fucked up. I mean it in the same way if you were orbiting in space and someone shot you out in a little survival capsule and you were literally spinning through space with no thrusters and no brakes, just at the whim of whatever propelled you without gravity. That's fucked up. You would feel fucked up. You'd feel like, onward forever. You'd think, well, this is fucked up, man. I need to put my foot in the ground. I need to grow something. I need to be able to have volition and move. You are fucked up if you have an ideology or religion that tells you you know what right is without knowing what wrong is. And I don't mean wrong meaning it's outside of myself, I can see it over there. Wrong within you. It's okay to play around with what's right as long as you're acknowledging that I am equal parts what's wrong. The potentiality, the seed. Remember, the seed's in the center. You're looking at the two halves. It doesn't mean you are wrong to acknowledge that wrongness exists within you. You don't need to be that. Witness the potentiality. The danger of righteousness, which is the precursor to all violence of an unnatural nature. That precursor of righteousness is believing you don't have wrongness within you. It's always outside you. That's the devil. If you're looking for terminology. Pitfalls, devil, demons, depression, anxiety, hate, you name it. Fall from grace, limbo, hell, you name it. That's what it is. Believing you are liberated from wrongness and your rightness is your fixed view. You will cause great harm to yourself, great harm to others, but you will do so without realizing it because you will be living in the illusion that whatever I'm doing and feeling is right, and anything I don't like about how I feel in my heart, in my mind, in my life is someone else's fault. You abdicate responsibility for your life when you are righteous, because then anything that's dynamic is the fault of the world. So you lose your own power. There's the world and there's you, and those are two halves spinning. You're both at all times. That's stitching in the center. So I saw these different halves and they're spinning. And I imagined to myself, one way to think of it is stitching. Another is to think of it as, if these two turbines are spinning, they're creating a kind of what? Air current. Like if the turbines were both spinning this way, the water air that shot up would be doing this. It would need a regenerative thing in this way. But if they're spinning opposite, they're still going to create water flow, but it's going to go like this. It's going to be a funky eddy. Funky Eddie. I mean, like your funky Uncle Eddie. There's a guy named Funky Eddie out there. Whoa, that was a really funky Eddie. Kind of like this. This is the Funky Eddie. Two turbines going off. I can't do opposites. Funky Eddie. You are Funky Eddie. Edwina, if you prefer. Both are equally acceptable. Any variation of Funky Eddie, Edwina, is who you are. That's how you know you'll have solved your problem, dropped your anxiety, and released yourself from righteousness if you feel like Funky Eddie. Funky Eddie is just letting it flow like an S-curve through you. So, you then are the space between the turbines. You are the space between opposites. Therefore, you are literally the flow itself through space. What? Yeah. Crazy, really. If we're being honest about it, that's kind of an insane thing. To imagine that you are flowing space. That feels the opposite of what you experience, right? I am a thingy. I'm made of thing. I'm made of feeling things and memory things and solid stuff, and I'm just so aware of everything in my life. The idea that that is space flowing is counterintuitive to experience. So, what else did I learn in the center of the earth? Time and not time are two halves. Time and not time. Time and not time are two halves that we're flowing through. When you release yourself from the right view of time, what feels and looks material ceases to appear that way. It begins to be something that flows in space. Stardust to atoms, to skin molecules, to vocal notes, to voice, to prayer, to song, to love, back around. Doing the Funky Eddie S-curve through these things. Is that material? The desire to win a race, the buildup of musculature, the depletion of musculature at death, those cells dissipating into dust that an orchid sucks up that sits in your living room and releases pheromones and its own seeds into your nostrils on a minuscule scale that end up in your bloodstream as part of your musculature. The illusion of material is time-based only. It is not real in the sense we feel it to be. That's okay. You don't have to get past that. You have to blow your mind open. It's okay to feel like this is real and solid. That's one half of it. The perception of this id, identity, ego, self as a solid object. Wonderful. You're just making sure you've got the other half spinning in your consciousness as well, so you can be the weave space flow of Funky Eddie in between. You are this corporeal object, and you are not. You are not real in this way. You are ephemeral. You are flowing in a current that extends before you arrived and after you arrived as you. That's who you are. The space flowing from there to here that for one tiny bit of a crest of a wave is shaped and feels like this. It comes back like... And I say comes back, I don't mean everyone dies. It comes alive as a new thing. No, There's no death life. What? Yes, there's no death life. What? Yes, there's no death life. Those are two halves. Alive, death, opposites spinning, you the conscious thread, S curving funky eddy, Edwina in between. It's just time, the fixed point of rightness about time, that gives the illusion of life and death, which creates the fantastic mystery of what happens in between. What was going on with me before I became me? What will become of me? What's on the other side of it? Right? That's an illusion. There's nothing on the other side of it. This is the other side of it. The illusion is that this is a fixed time. This is flowing through space always. All of this always is what's going on. There's no other side to it. There's no place to dip out of and come back. I'm in the void, hell, limbo, non-existence. I'm existence. No, it's always all. Those are just different points of view of the same flow. Or another way of looking at it, the opposite way of looking at it, the S curve, oh, that was this way, what about this way, is there's nothing on the other side. Meaning there's no thing on the other side. Meaning it is the void, the empty eternal. There's nothing. There is utter and complete and total disintegration of all. All of it passes. In time, over time, from the fixed point of view of time. If you want to play in that realm, look at that half. Well, if that is true, that you exist and there is time, then there will be an end to all things. So you don't need to worry about which thing is so right. Nothing's going to win. Nothing's going to survive. Nothing's going to triumph. Nothing's going to lose. It all has the same fate. You and your enemy have the same fate. You cannot alter the fate that there is nothing on the other side. If you take the point of view of rightness of time. If you take the point of view of no rightness of time, you never leave this side. There is no side. Both of those are true at the same time. There's an example of funky Eddy Edwina and our S-curve of space flow through rotating turbines of halves of whatever paramagnetic balance, we gotta come with a new term, is going on for you. That is the potentiality and capacity we all have. So that's what I learned in my journey to the center of the earth over these last 32 days. Pretty cool. Yeah. It's also given me this thought. I'm SeaHorseTiger, and I'm not alone. You're not alone. None of us are alone. And I'll remind you that I am the loneliest human being in the history of existence. I will remind you that I am alone on Earth. I will remind you that after the collapse, all of you left to go live in the outer 3 solar systems. I'll remind you that I was sent back to be the only one here to run the machines to try to recalibrate the center of the Earth into balance. So I know alone. 17 years I've been alone. I know it ain't great. And now, I know it's not real. It's not real. I'm not alone. You're not alone. You might feel alone. You might feel all the awfuls and uglies of aloneness, all the way up to the edge of wishing for non-existence. Overall, or in a particular moment, you may be enshrouded in the darkness of hopelessness for a myriad of reasons, those thrust upon you by fate and culture, in history, in genes, and those made through your own volitions, your fuck-ups. You may be aware of all that inhibits you. You may feel it as a pressure, a weight, a burden, which cannot be lifted because of its omnipresence and its recurrence upon you, that all your hopes eventually get battered. You can feel struck down and defeated at the core level. That's what I mean by the awful uglies. You can feel that. And also, at the same time, know that it is not true. I'm serious. I'm serious. I know it sounds outlandish. I know it sounds either prescriptive or bullshitty. But I'm telling you, you don't have to let go of the awful uglies to see that they are also not true. You don't have to fall for the illusion that you can defeat them, that they will one day totally disappear, or that there's something good about feeling this. You can be fully invested in that half of life experience, fully aware and completely experiencing the awful uglies, and at the same time, be aware that they are a complete and utter fallacy. And you can be the S Funky Eddie space flow that's feeling them both. I feel this totally constantly and this totally constantly. So that when you're in the grip of the awful uglies of aloneness, it is not that you get a better point of view or beat them or just have good habits. It's that while you are inhabiting them and they inhabit you, you also have learned, trained yourself to be aware, not of the possibility, but the literal truth, the undeniable truth that the opposite is also true at the exact same time. The existence, the very existence of the awful uglies is proof that the heavenly kisses are also bestowed upon you in equal measure. All things balanced from the center. Know that that is simply true. Even if you don't fully feel it in that moment. Even if you're like, oh, I didn't lose the awful uglies. I'm not running through daisies and blowing kisses at strangers. I still feel it all the awful ugly. That's okay. That's not an indication that you failed at seeing this. The way you'll know that you've seen the truth, the unmoored truth, the truth that is beyond a false fixed point in reality, a right point of view. When you have a true center position point of view of all things, you will see that the heavenly kisses are equal to the awful uglies, and you always are the center point. So that experiencing all the awful uglies implies experiencing all the heavenly kisses. And again, it doesn't mean you have to only feel that. It means you won't tip into the awful uglies. You won't be doing this. You won't be fucked up. You will be aware at any moment, you can take this point of view. In the middle of a fight, in the middle of bliss, in the middle of a shower, in the middle of sex, in the middle of being lost and spacing out, in the middle of focus, in the middle of endeavor, in the middle of a hard relationship discussion, you can play from the point of view of everything is good. Everything as it is good. You're allowing yourself to play from that point of view because you're not falling for the illusion that you have to justify it. That you have to now say, this is the right point of view always. You're just saying, I'm just looking at it this way for a moment. 30 seconds later, I might be over here. Here's what's wrong with all those same things. That fluidity is liberation. That fluidity is enlightenment. You'll feel lighter because you're not attaching to a false reality. Equally important, you're not attaching to something that spins and trying to hold it still. So the dissonance and anxiety and all the things that populate your life because of those happen. If you're letting opposites spin and being the center S-curve, space flow, funky Eddie, Edwina, you're not grabbing hold. You're fluid and light. And that will create a whole different set of experiences that you'll be reacting to. So you don't need to be in the right point of view or worried about not being in the wrong point of view or any combination of that. You're not falling for the possibility that that's even possible. It becomes a series of this. Two things, syncopated. Now in this case, they're not opposites. My clicks are not opposites exactly, except they are in the sense that they're competing vibrational sound waves. Blink, blink. And in their competition, they complement or syncopate or heighten each other, right? Like threads in the jar, like the S-curve funky Eddie. Notice how it's just slightly different, or maybe occasionally the same, right? So that's what you can be feeling at all times, coming from the center of the world, from the center of the earth, from the center of your being, a rhythm. Is that the rhythm? No, that's a rhythm. Every rhythm is possible. It is a creator of rhythm. The two spinning opposites create rhythm. Opposites of every size and composition. So an infinite array of rhythms. The question is simply, are you living in the rhythms? Not just music rhythms. Not just your tribe's rhythms. Not just your idea of yourself rhythms. Not your hat rhythms or your nation state rhythms. Just the rhythms without a fixed point of view that locks you into one rhythm. Are you capable of just being in rhythm? That's what it feels like when you're at the center of the world, I found out today. And I'm SeaHorseTiger.